You're listening to Prime Sports Tennis with Andrea Leanne on the Prime Sports Radio Network. And on today's show, Jack Sock captures a milestone title win in Paris, earning a first-ever trip to the ATP Finals and inside the top 10. Andrea will tell you how Sock turned around his season so fast. We have the latest on the next-gen ATP Finals, chock full of innovative ideas, but have they gone too far? Coco Vandeweghe cracks the top 10, but she still loses to Gerges in China. And we'll preview Coco and the U.S. Fed Cup team as they take on Belarus in the Fed Cup final. All right, it's Tuesday, the 7th of November, 2017, and you are listening to Prime Sports Tennis on the Prime Sports Radio Network with lead tennis analyst, former top 15 player in the world, Andrea Leanne. So we are still going strong. Yes, the Grand Slams are done. The ATP final is going to be coming up here soon. We've got the next gen, Fed Cup, Davis Cup. Still a lot more to go before the 2017 season comes to an end. But Andrea, we have a lot to talk about this past week, especially with Jack Sock's wild ride this season. Started so promising, then faded during the summer. We thought until last week that would be a fade to the rest of the entire season, but alas, Jack Sock is back and better than ever. So how did he do it?
Well, Greg, first of all, the Americans on a charge. As you said, the end of the year, post-U.S. Open, but it's been the Americans capturing the spotlight. Jack Sock, unbelievable last week in Bercy, creating history. As you mentioned, first time that he has cracked the top 10 this week. And, of course, first time he's won a Masters 1000 event. It'll be the first time that he has end of the year, the number one ranked American, takes that over from John Isner, and the first time he has been able to qualify for the ATP Finals in London. So huge, huge week. And as you mentioned, what a turnaround. He was down 5-1 in the third in his opening match to Kyle Edmund, his nemesis, a guy who had beaten him before in Atlanta earlier this year. And it looked out of it. He himself said he was looking for a vacation. He was supposed to be actually with John Isner at Augusta this week playing a round of golf. John Isner's father-in-law is a member and had signed them two up and thought they would be on vacation on their off-season now, wouldn't have to play some more. But Jack is now back and going into London. Quite frankly, one of the top players right now, one of the hottest players on tour. How did he do it? I watched the matches, Greg. You know, we have to mention it's been such a contrast. He himself admitted to that. He was 18-4 in the first part of the year until March. 2 titles. We were with him in Del Rey. Of course, he won on Auckland, the first title of the year. And then the next 6 months, 4-12. Absolutely dismal. Really did not show the same type of fire and drive and 2 feet and attitude we're used to see. Such a great competitor. He's so talented. He's so fast. He's won Grand Slam titles in doubles, so he has an all-court game, has the hands, has the feet. And so we're used to seeing a really, full force Jack Sock. But for some reason in the last 6 months, a lot of things happened. We've already talked about the scheduling where he had to go from the back-to-back Sunshine doubles over to Davis Cup in Australia, came back for Houston, was absolutely exhausted, not in great spirits, and not feeling well on top of it. I don't really think he ever recovered from that. I think it took a couple months for him to get his bearings again, especially on the clay, not an easy time. And then there was a lot of little problems, little injuries, little nicks, little strains that seemed to get in his way. And I think that started to play on his mind. And we just did not see the same fire, the same intensity we used to see with him. And actually what was interesting is he went into Bercy. He had won some matches. He's been winning some doubles, so it was great to see him playing the doubles. I think that got him back in the mode of winning and got his attitude right. But I think we have to give an assist, of course, to the Laver Cup. He went over and played on the Laver Cup, played for the rest of the world with John McEnroe as the captain. And it was John, I think, who really was on court with him, had that intensity, tried to instill it with him, get his fire going again. And I think it worked. I think being around the guys, being part of a team, got him very positive, got him very motivated. And I think from there on out, he had a little bit of a different attitude. So, yes, we give an assist to John McEnroe, as John McEnroe helped Caroline Wozniacki when she went over to Asia after the U.S. Open, a very disappointing U.S. Open, really needed to get her mojo back. John McEnroe, I think, helped Jack Sock a bit. Of course, we give also credit to his new coach, Jay Berger, who has worked with him in the USTA for years. But I think sometimes these big names help, and being around a Roger and being around a Rafa Nadal and all these other players, and seeing also your contemporaries doing well against them, I think had to get to Sock a little bit, knowing that Sam Querrey was in line to have that last spot, has been playing the best tennis of the Americans all year. Also, perhaps ignited that competitive edge in Sock. And, of course, Isner was the one who was slated in Bercy, who reached the finals there last year, who we thought would actually do it. But I think what happened with Jack Sock is that he was able to come back in that match against Edmund, down 5-1, double break. And we then started to see the scrappy Jack. He said he got his mojo back on his forehand. He got a little bit looser, realized, didn't really think he was going to win, so started swinging out. And lo and behold, came back, won that match, had to come back in two more matches in that tournament to win it, of course, from a set down. And I think the most interesting stat in Jack and the whole tournament is the fact that before this tournament in Bercy, he was 4-14 after he lost the first set. So he was only able to win 4 matches out of 18 when he had already lost the first set. In Bercy, he won 3.
Wow.
And the fact that he had really decided to dig in and start fighting again and get that scrappy style also where he's known for, and being able to hit those passing shots as well as hitting the big forehand, I think was a combination of showing that the mentality was what changed him, and the fact that he was really willing to do the hard work, because he did look trimmer to me in Bercy, and also willing to pay the price on court and doing whatever it took to win the match.
Well, we'll be seeing a little bit more of Jack Sock at the ATP Finals coming up. So his season is not over yet, but the next Gen ATP Finals. This is something that maybe a few years ago would have been for Jack Sock, but no more. This is now for the next gen of top players to keep an eye on. Now they're in Milan today. They started the event today.
Well, we do want to mention one thing, because he did beat a guy who's not in the next gen. He's 25 years old, but Krajinovic, who he played in the final, another 25-year-old guy, who was the one who stunned John Isner and Bercy in the semis. He also, just went right through the draw. He actually beat Sam Querrey in the first round. This is a guy who we're going to hear a lot more of. He's a talented Serbian player, was a top junior in his time, came from Bollettieri's down in Florida, was there from, I think, ages 13 to 19, then had a lot of injuries, Greg. Had to have shoulder surgery, had bone spurs in his wrist, really lost a lot of time there, but came back and actually was able to qualify for the main draw in Bercy because he had won 5 challengers on clay. So can you imagine really your forte on clay and then coming to a very fast indoor surface and doing so well? It's just kudos to the fact what an all-court player he is. But I think we're going to hear a lot more about him, because to me, when he played Isner in that semis and he was able to keep his composure and really keep his focus to stick it in that third set breaker with Isner, especially that forehand return to serve was unbelievable, because, John Isner, who has played 68 tie breaks this year, 42 and 26 in tie breaks, and then you have Krajinovic, who had only played 2 tie breaks before he played John, only won 1 tie break the whole year. This is his only second ATP event. It was just like David and Goliath, but it is absolutely amazing to me that in a crunch situation on those 2 last points, that Krajinovic was able to really stick those returns and come up with that victory against Isner. Because, of course, Isner had the same opportunity as Jack Sock, as did Tsonga, Anderson, Querrey, we've already mentioned, Carreño Busta. He's gone 1-14 since the U.S. Open. Just guys that really haven't really been able to step up to the plate after the Open. So you do have to give credit to Jack Sock for stepping up when he had the opportunity, and you got to give some credit to Krajinovic for being able to come back from such adversity in his early career to now perhaps he's going to be ranked now 33 and perhaps now being seeded at the Australian Open.
All right, so we'll definitely look forward to talking more about him in 2018. Maybe he is, when we do our preview of 2018, maybe he might be a part of your sleeper list. So that's something to keep an eye on.
Oh, absolutely. I think we're definitely, he now ends the year as the number 2 ranked Serbian, just below Novak.
Well, has he been on the Davis Cup team? Do you know?
Have not seen that.
Okay.
Of course, he is, I think he's really gone below the radar because of all these injuries. Obviously, the Americans now know who he is because he's played 3 of them last week in Bercy.
Yeah.
Everyone now knows that he's very talented, and he does have a nice all-court game. And what was interesting is, even though he said he was shaking, he was able to really execute under pressure, really uncharacteristic of someone without that experience. But
Sure.
under pressure, he executed against Isner and Query and really was able to come up with those wins. And, of course, he was up a set against Sock in the finals.
All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on him, and if he keeps playing as well as he did in this tournament, then see no reason why he won't be on the Serbian Davis Cup team next time around. Next Gen ATP Finals today started in Milan. There were a lot of innovative ideas worth talking about. Everyone wants to weigh in on the opening ceremonies, though.
Well, see, I've been stalling. I didn't really want to get to the opening ceremony. Well, what can we say? It wasn't the Labor Cup opening ceremony. It was a little bit different, a little bit of, Milan thrown in. They wanted to be about fashion and very chic and very avant-garde, and they had these very pretty models out there that were supposed to accompany the guys in the draw ceremony when they figured out which team they're going to be on. This is a round robin, 4 guys in each group. But it got a little bit risque, I would say. I'm going to use the word risque. There have been other words used. An apology was issued by ATP head Chris Commode. He said, obviously, this got out of hand. The intentions were good. It was a Red Bull type of event. And so great for Red Bull. I think they've gotten more exposure than they realized. I don't think they mind the controversy, but the ATP was very staunch in its response that this is obviously something that they do not condone and nor will ever do again.
Do you think that?
To me, the guys have moved on. They, of course, what happens when something like this goes wrong? You have Roger Federer do a videotape that you show throughout the entire event. And so it was Roger who came on board today and gave a video, really expounding on what incredibly talented, strong guys these are, and that they are the next gen, that they will be the ones to lead the way. And, to me, I think it was great that he is showing support for this. He's playing Andy Murray in an exhibition tonight. And, of course, that's for Andy's charity event in Scotland. So, Roger Federer, of course, coming to the rescue on all sides again. But as we mentioned, I think it was Sasha Zverev. He had a surprise appearance. Of course, he ended this as a number 1 seed. He was a top next-gen star. But because he wants to focus on London in a week, he did not want to play there. But he did make an appearance. And boy, was it noteworthy. He is so funny. And as you mentioned, they have so many different things going on, Greg. They have so many different innovative formats they're trying. We have the no ad scoring, no lets. Of course, the court only has singles lines, no doubles lines. And we have the on-court coaching. Not like the WTA. They have headphones on. And what happens is the players go to their side. They're only allowed to do this once, and they put the headphones on. I'm sorry, actually, they're only allowed 1 medical timeout, but they're allowed to put their headphones on the change of ends, and their coach has the headphones, and we're allowed to listen in. And some of the exchanges were quite something.
Yeah, and this is now, and Sasha's not even playing, but this is
not playing, and there are no points involved in this event. This is just all about money, and it's all kind of very innovative and trying a lot of new things, trial and error. But this was one exchange when Sasha was on court, and of course Marcelo Melo is helping him as a part-time trainer. He's still playing himself, but it was very funny.
Right, can you say something useful and not be this useless all the time? Like, you're useless outside the court already. Can you just be a little bit more useful on the court, or no?
Can you?
Or this is too tough for you. Just say one thing that is actually useful. Come on, okay. I'm listening.
Bend your knees, hit the forehand over the net.
Wow, good job. You seriously think you're ever gonna get a coaching job with that?
Of course, that was Sasha there saying to Melo, "You seriously going to get a coaching job with that?"
Yeah, a little too relaxed.
Actually, it was much longer, and everyone can pick it up online. I know I put it out on Facebook. People are loving it. Boy, is Sasha Zverev a character. Now you know what the fight the players have and what they really feel when these coaches try to give them some advice. But it was very funny. I think, Greg, some of these things are going to be implemented down the line, and some maybe not. But of course, Shapovalov, who lost today to Chung, said, you know what, it's okay, because he liked the fact that they were increasing the speed of the matches. It's 3 out of 5, but it's first 1 to 4 games, so they're shortened sets. And, of course, not one match has gone over 2 hours. They've all been under 2 hours, which is the goal, I think, to try and create it like an NBA game or another professional sport where you really try for the audience to maintain their attention for about no more than 2 hours. So I think Shapovalov really liked that. He liked the intensity that you had to start from the first point. Every point counts when you have that type of shortened, abbreviated format. And it's gone well. The fans have loved it.
Now, I would have thought that even though he lost, that Shapovalov with Sasha there, not there, would have been maybe one of the favorites. Who do you think is considered a favorite there?
I think actually in this type of format, I really think it's whoever plays the big points better, who comes out there and who has been able to really get on a hot streak and hit the ground running. Because when you are playing no ad scoring and you have 3 out of 5, first one to 4, it's very short and very intense. And so Shapovalov sometimes takes a little bit of time to get into his rhythm, and I think that he is going to benefit from the experience today, and I think we'll see him a better Dennis tomorrow. But we saw Donaldson play George. George beat him. We saw Danny Medvedev win today, and so it's been interesting to see this new next gen because they are bright and they have great humor. And I mean, Shapovalov had this grin on his face in this straw ceremony. I think maybe he's still a little bit recovering from that, but no, he seems to have gotten over it. We saw Jared Donaldson, of course, over there, the lone American in the draw. He has been by far the best American of that next-gen group this year, the highest ranked. And he went with George, on an outing in Milan, and they went to get some breakfast, and it was very entertaining, very funny. We're going to put that out on Facebook, too, because, boy, isn't he a breath of fresh air. We talked about female managers in our last show, and Kelly Wolf from Octagon, perennial manager, managed many, many top players, has been spiriting him along, done a great job. It's so much fun to see the behind-the-scenes accounts with these guys. And Donaldson and George were so funny, Greg. I mean, absolutely hysterical. And, of course, George's sister came along, who's gorgeous, and Donaldson kept looking at her, and she ended up picking up the coffee for both of them. So there you go. But I think the next-gen thing is a breath of fresh air at this time of year. It's something different. I think the fans are attracted to seeing the sport reinvented and trying to get a more mainstream audience and, of course, younger kids involved. And to all that, I think it's a great thing.
All right. So we'll talk more about that next week. We'll wrap up the final and let you know what happened there. Now,
I will say there's a lot of money involved too.
Hey.
$1.27 million in the whole event. The winner has a maximum amount of about $390,000. So a lot of money for these guys to pick up. We mentioned Venus Williams topping the women's leaderboard in prize money with almost $5.5 million. So it's interesting to see, Greg, how, there's a lot of investment, corporate interest in professional tennis, and the fact that it does run 10 months a year, 11 months a year,
sure.
And that's nice to see, too.
All right, Gerges beats Coco in China. Coco does crack the top 10 anyway. What happened there?
Your girl, Coco Vandeweghe. I mean, is she just a riot every time she walks on court? The strut's always there, the smile, the emotion, the shots, everything's always there with Coco, and it worked well to get her to the final. She just zipped right through her group in the round robin in Zhuhai. Stephanie Graf watching on, making a special appearance there the last couple of years. So nice to see her. But in the final, she was up 5-2, Coco. And, of course, Pat Cash was there, and her coach helping her through this. They had trained 2 weeks in London beforehand, so she looked good. She looked fit. She looked sharp in the round robin, looked sharp in the semifinal. And then against Gerges was up 5-2 and, was playing adequate tennis, doing everything adequately, taking advantage of Gerges' vulnerable second serve and hitting the winner she needed. The serving was okay. And then all of a sudden, for no apparent reason, the wheels fell off. And you could almost pinpoint the time where she missed the forehand in the net and the double fault came after it. And I could just see Pat Cash saying to him, oh, my goodness. But Gerges, you have to credit, she has been one of the most consistent players on tour. She is much fitter. She's in better condition. She's moving better. She's not a big, flashy player like Coco. She doesn't have the weapons or the power or the serve, as we mentioned, but she is a steady, mentally tough competitor. She won in Moscow. She's coming off a streak, had momentum, and just hung in there with Coco, just rode the wave with Coco until Coco basically gave her enough unforced errors. I'm not going to say Coco self-destruct, but Coco herself said she was flat coming into that match, disappointing, but what an incredible turnaround to finally crack her second goal for the year, and that's a top 10 ranking. And that's a first time for Coco, and that's a very big deal. Of course, Madison Keys cracked the top 10 a year ago, but since then it really been that Serena, Venus, Lindsay, Capriati group. So it's nice to see another new American face in the top 10, and that she will carry with her onto Fed Cup.
Yeah, and maybe that's her third goal is to win bring back the final, win the final for the first time.
Well, she's won all 5 of her matches this year for Fed Cup. She certainly has spearheaded this for the U.S. No question about it. She's been the leader. Sloane Stephens is supposed to go, is supposed to play, but obviously I call it an out-of-body experience in Asia. This time for Sloane, she really did not compete well, lost all her matches in Zhuhai, in fact retired in the second one, saying she just wasn't fit enough or well enough. But we expect hopefully a better performance in her at Fed Cup in Belarus. But I think what's interesting is I really enjoyed watching Pat Cash with Coco, and I think that at this stage, Greg, at this part of the season where everyone's a little bit tired, a little bit cranky, the traveling has been, enormous. And when you're in Asia for that long, that many months, it's interesting to see how, Pat kind of went with it with Coco, realizes you're going to have some hiccups, you're going to have some, challenges out there, but not to make a big deal about it. And he doesn't make a big deal about it with Coco. He kind of laughs it off. He tries to refocus her. But I think he realizes that in the big picture, in the long term, the best way to go is just to ignore it. Just let it blow off your back and move on. And so there are no dramas. I think that Coco is really responded well to that, so that she doesn't sit there then and just fixate on the losses and the negative. She goes on to the positives. So we applaud both of them, and then I think that has a lot to do with why she's in the top 10.
All right, and do you think that do you expect Sloane to get something back? Because again, we understand everything she's been through. Do you think with this representing her country, chance to win the first time in 17 years, the Fed Cup, that will be enough for her to get her juices flowing again and help Coco and the whole team win the Fed Cup?
Well, we hope so. I mean, Sloane Stephens has had a remarkable season considering she just really started at Wimbledon. She had the foot surgery that kept her out almost a year, but came back in the summer and had those incredible streak of tennis back-to-back and the premier mandatory events in the Canadian in Cincinnati, then of course winning her first Grand Slam at the U.S. Open. That will help her end the year at number 13. Of course, Greg, as you know, these competitive girls, they feed off each other. She sees Coco's higher. I'm sure that will stick with her, and probably in her off season as she trains for the new year and trying to really maximize her potential. But I think for them, Greg, I think that Sloane will go to Belarus. I'm hoping she will play. Now, we really weren't given a lot of specifics towards any injury or issue in Zhuhai. She did mention a knee thing, that she had overcompensated and this and that, but she basically just said, I really wasn't ready to play in Asia, and I really should not have come to Asia.
Okay.
I really should have ended my year after the U.S. Open because it was just too quick of a turnaround, and it was a quick turnaround. There's no question. She only had 10 days between winning the Open, doing all the obligations, and then coming over to Asia. I think that for Fed Cup, it's a different venue. I think what's going to be important for Sloane for next year is scheduling, and that goes for Madison Keys and that goes for Coco. I think these girls really need to put together a schedule that they can accomplish and start small. So think small. Don't think in terms of 26 tournaments or 22 tournaments. Start with about 15 or 16, and then they can always add them in, because I think these are all players that are in their mid-20s that they need to learn how to balance their lives on and off court so that they can be happy and 2 feet in all the time, every time they walk on to play a match.
Do you want to predict who is going to win the Fed Cup?
Oh, my goodness. Well, we should announce, Vika Azarenka did make a formal announcement today. Obviously, she is not able to join her team in Belarus.
Mm-hmm.
She is still embroiled in this custody battle in L.A., which prohibits her child, her 10-month-old child, from traveling with her outside of California. So she's staying with her child, understandably so, but she did announce today that her heart will be with her team and her country. She's very sorry she can't join them, she says, but obviously, we hope that Vika plays it smart. Vika looks at the big picture, and Vika listens to her attorneys, because we obviously hope she can put all the pieces in place to her life so she can be able to do everything. But right now, I think that this is going to be a very young Belarus team. They certainly have a lot of talent. They have results. They have some experience now. And to me, they're the clear favorite. It all has to be about Coco.
Yeah.
And if Coco goes in there headstrong and game smart, I think she will, and I do mean it that way, I think that she will command the type of momentum and spirit and real domination of an event as she has in the last two ties. Of course, we should mention Bethany Maddock obviously is not there, still recovering from the knee injury she suffered at Wimbledon.
Yeah.
She had played doubles with Coco, but she's not there. I think with Shelby Rogers and Allison Risk, it completes the team. And, of course, with first-time captain Kathy Rinaldi, you couldn't have better leadership. So they have all the ingredients. For the first time in 17 years, I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to bring home the Fed Cup trophy, and
Okay.
I think they're going to bring them all the accolades because they deserve it.
Excellent. Well, I certainly hope so. Yes, it's been a long time, and I think this is also just the beginning after what we saw at the U.S. Open with these U.S. women. So hopefully the domination will return once again, and this could be the beginning. So we're looking forward to it, and that'll be on Tennis Channel too, so you can tune in on the Tennis Channel this weekend. All right, so now we're going to end the show like we ended it last week, and we're going to be ending it from now on with the Facebook segment. So we've got questions by tennis fans on your Facebook page, Andrea. You got something?
Right, we're doing this because, of course, we put the show now on Facebook and all the social platforms, and the response has been enormous, and fans have questions that they don't really get answered from the coverage, and so we said, okay, we want to make the fan experience even better. We want to answer your questions, and so we do get all of them. I read them all up very late, reading everything, and I do work on getting the thorough answers that you deserve.
All right, well, we've got 3 of them here out of your list. We're going to start. Nick from Washington wants to know, what do you think Jack Sock, Nick Kyrgios, and Grigor Dimitrov have to do in order to win a Grand Slam?
It's interesting because I play with a lot of juniors, a lot of young men who, they want to play like Jack Sock. They want a career like Jack Sock and Kyrgios and Dimitrov. And to me, it's really about the mental now. It just shows you when you watch Jack Sock be able to turn around not only the week in Bercy, but his career in Bercy, how important it is to always keep trying. And there was Jack Sock down 5-1 in the third against Edmund. Opening match, and he just kept plugging away. And yes, he has a big forehand. Yes, he has a big serve. But what was most impressive to me is how scrappy he was. And we mentioned, it goes back to that book written by Brad Gilbert, Winning Ugly. And obviously, there's nothing ugly about Jack Sock. He's a very good-looking guy, lots of charisma. But it's really the theory that goes behind the title Winning Ugly, and that's meaning you got to get gritty. You got to get mad. You got to go and say, I'm going to fight for every point until I can't walk. And that's what Jack Sock did in Bercy. He got gritty, he got scrappy, he had the passing shots along with the winners, meaning he was digging them out, and he just wasn't going to stop fighting. And I think that with those 3 guys, what we have to see is, first of all, continuity in their training. They've got to do it on a regular basis. It can't just be 10 days in, 10 days out. They've got to show that type of fitness and consistency over the year. That is what pays off, as we've seen with Roger Federer and all the other top guys like Rafa Nadal. The other thing is that, it's about the mental. We know they have all the physical. We know they can bash the ball. They have the strength. They have the power, speed as well. So they have all the ingredients. It's how they put it together and the thinking that goes on court and the ability to really to listen to advice and to take in some type of, words of wisdom from coaches and people who can help them, because I do think all 3 of them have some technical issues. Dimitrov not so much as Kyrgios and Sock, but I think that they have to be willing to take in a little advice to make the next step. They've all plateaued. Now, obviously, Jack is top 10. Dimitrov has been. But to make that next jump, to win a Grand Slam title, to get into the top 5, I think they're going to have to make some, just minor adjustments. But, again, it's about the mental. And it's about the mental in the juniors. It's about the mental in anything. It's the fact that you have to be in there 2 feet in, trying every single point.
All right, Caitlin from London wants to know, with so many top players not doing well after the U.S. Open, is the tennis season too long?
Well, we've been asked this question many times. This is actually the most popular question, most frequent question we had, primarily because we've seen a lot of top players with lackluster results. We saw Muguruza. We've seen, as you saw, Kyrgios had to end his season. Dimitrov's had a few that, expectations were higher for him. And I think the season is very long. I'm going to speak as a player. I think it is long. I think 10, 11 months. There's no other professional sport that has a season this long. And that also covers the canvas, the global canvas that it does. The enormous amount of traveling and being overseas for long periods of time. This is actually a big difference than when I played. We talked about Greg. When I played, we had so many events on our tour in the United States. We had, really big segments at home where we could go home after the tournament. When you're in Asia for 2 months, that's not the case, and you have to make do. But I do think for the women, it's very important for them to find a balance between their tour life. We've heard this phrase, manage your schedule. And I think the scheduling for all these, whether it's Sock, Kyrgios, Dimitrov, Madison Keys, Sloane, Coco, is going to be the crucial thing for next year. Roger Federer has set the standard. He said, you know what? This is going to be my schedule. He pulled out Bercy. He won Basel, and he knew if he played Bercy, he had a very good chance to end the year at number 1 and take it from Rafa. But he pulled out Bercy because he didn't physically feel he was able to compete at his full 100%, and he wanted to be ready for London. So these are lessons I think this 20-something crew and their managers can learn from, that it's not necessary to take that easy paycheck, the appearance fee, that sometimes it's better to think big picture and try to achieve the tennis goals and not worry so much about the money, which is very enticing. There's no question about it. But I think Jack Sock has overplayed a little bit in his scheduling. I think he's been out there a little bit too much. And these are, when you're 20-something, you need that balance. You need family. You need friends. You need to go to the football game. You need to find a way also to be able to train and keep your fitness up and improve your game. So when you get out there for the matches, you have your best shot. So to me, I do think that the season is too long. It's not going to change because I'm also a believer in free enterprise, and you have to put all the opportunities out there. It's up to the players to manage their schedule and decide what's best for them.
All right, and finally, Anwar from India wants to know, with their rankings having dropped due to injuries, will top players like Andy Murray and Novak Djokovic get special rankings when they do return?
Andy Murray out of the top 10 for the first time after Paris dropped off. Novak has dropped as well. Of course, Nishikori, Raonic, Berdych, Stan Wawrinka, who had surgery, they have all dropped. And there's no question that, just to give you an idea, we have Wawrinka, of course, is the highest still at 7. But Novak at number 12, just under Juan Martín del Potro, who actually has gone up to 11. And then, of course, Andy Murray's dropped to 16, Berdych to 19, Nishikori 22, Raonic 24. So the question is, what happens at the Australian Open? They do have 32 seeds. These men will be seeded, but will Novak or Andy be given a sort of provisional ranking? No. The answer, I'm told, is no. They still have their rankings, and there's no need to do that, they said. They haven't been off long enough to require a special ranking, protected ranking. So they will go on as is, as what they have on the computer. And we're going to have a very interesting Australian Open, Greg, because that means we're going to have a lot of big names in those lower-seeded categories. And so that first week is going to be the most exciting week probably of any Australian Open.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it already.
Of course, we have Serena Williams coming back for the women.
Yeah,
and it'll be interesting to see her seed in that, how that will be handled. But she's been off a little bit longer than these guys on maternity leave. But it is interesting because she will not be off a full year. Mm-hmm. She'll have the Australian Open on the computer. I think that it'll be interesting to see if they give her some provisional seeding. But no, otherwise the men go as is.
All right. So a lot more to cover, though, before we get to 2018 and the Australian Open.
And we have to mention, since there are 20 million bikini shots coming out on social media from all the WTA players who are on vacation now on their off season, including Caroline Wozniacki, who announced her engagement and yes to the fans. We had 3 fans out there, Chris, Karen, and John, who all predicted this and asked us about the ring on her finger during the tournament. It was on the right hand, but it was not actually the engagement ring, which, Greg, is 8.8 carats. So very, very good job there by her fiance, David Lee, NBA famed NBA player, David Lee, who she's engaged to. So we congratulate both of them. Boy, it's just such a great story. What an incredible ending to this year for Caroline. First, the WTA final, number 3 ranking in the world, and now, of course, an engagement to David Lee. So absolutely terrific news, as is, I also want to wish you a happy birthday.
Wow, thank you. I appreciate that, Andrea. I got another year to go before I crack the big 5-0, so I still kind of feel young. That's all that matters, young. Right? Is how you feel,
right?
Yeah, the next gen of talk show hosts.
Maybe you'll go to the draw ceremony next year.
I'm looking forward to it. All right, Andrea, great job as always. Appreciate it. We'll talk next week about Fed Cup. We'll wrap up Fed Cup and Next Gen, and then preview the ATP Finals, and then soon enough the Davis Cup.
And also tune in to James Corden tonight. Novak is on tonight. He's in L.A., and he's on the Late Late Show with James, so tune into that.
All right, excellent. Thanks, Andrea. So for Andrea Leanne, I'm Greg DePalma, and thanks for tuning in once again. Don't forget, you can check out all of our shows on demand following every live broadcast on PrimeSportsNetwork.com or on our iTunes and YouTube pages under Prime Sports Network. You can also follow us on Twitter at PSN Tennis or at Prime SN, excuse me. So again, either at PSN Tennis or at Prime SN. Either Twitter follow will work. And you can receive all of our up-to-date news, opinions, and on-demand coverage link alerts. Make sure to tune in at the end of the season for our 2017 Aces Awards show, followed by our 2018 season preview special. And once again, thanks for tuning in to Prime Sports Tennis with Andrea Leanne on the Prime Sports Radio Network.